I think if you ask Deshaun himself asked if he played since he's been in Cleveland up to the level that he would want, he would say no, the same way I would say no as well. But you can also recognize that he's still a quarterback on the roster, and we'll see who is the best fit. But he's the most veteran. He's been on a huge contract.
The Cleveland Browns quarterback situation just got even more interesting, and this time, the voice cutting through the noise is someone who has actually lived inside that kind of pressure. Former NFL quarterback Kellen Mond weighed in on the Browns quarterback battle, and what he said says a lot about how teams really operate behind the scenes. Because from the outside, fans love to talk about open competition, best man wins, and all that. But when you hear somebody who has actually been in those rooms break it down, the picture gets a lot clearer.
In the past, he's shown the greatest potential, and not even necessarily potential, but the greatest and high-level quarterbacking than any quarterback on that roster. For him to go in 2020, obviously it's more than a decade ago. 33 touchdowns, I think 7 interceptions, almost 5,000 yards, and over 70% completion percentage. I mean, those are like MVP caliber numbers. So, he's done it in the past, and maybe it's within him.
Kellen Mond did not come in and act like this was some clean, perfectly fair fight. He basically said what a lot of NFL people already know but do not always say out loud. Quarterback battles are rarely truly equal. There is almost always some combination of draft capital, money, experience, and coaching preference shaping the decision long before the public ever sees a final depth chart. Because Mond has been in this world, he's been drafted, gone through team changes, and seen how quickly a quarterback room can shift depending on what the organization believes and who they invested in. That is why his comments hit differently. He's not guessing from a distance, he's speaking from experience. And the biggest thing Mond made clear is this: he believes Deshaun Watson is probably the starter. That is the headline. That does not mean Watson has turned everything around or is guaranteed to return to his old form. It means he has the inside track, and in the NFL, that matters. Mond's explanation is simple. If a team has invested big money and real history into a quarterback, it takes a lot for them to walk away. That's not shocking. That's just how the league works. Money becomes part of the equation whether fans like it or not. Here's the part nobody's talking about. People forget how dominant Watson was at his peak, because the most recent version has not looked like that player. But Mond is talking about history, upside, and the fact that Watson still owns the most proven high-level resume in that quarterback room. Whether people want to admit it or not, that matters to the Browns. And that is exactly why this competition feels tilted before the first real snaps even fully unfold. The battle is real, but the deck is not completely even. And Kellen Mond, more than most, understands exactly why.
And then I also said in the post, I think Deshaun has done a lot of work to improve on his fundamentals, certain balance stuff that I've seen throughout videos throughout the offseason. I messaged him about it, and then I've seen it in practice. And so again, I'm not saying Deshaun is going to go out there and play great in the season. That's up for Deshaun, the Browns, everyone to create a system around him, whatever that looks like. But also the other point too, where you mentioned in Shedeur, I don't necessarily look at it as a Deshaun Shedeur thing. I think
Shedeur Sanders, in Mond's view, is not just fighting Deshaun Watson. He's fighting the structure around Watson, the veteran status, the former MVP-level talent, and the massive financial investment the Browns are still trying to get something out of. Mond also made clear that where a player is drafted matters. Teams treat draft slots like signals. If a guy goes higher, the organization expects more from him sooner. If he goes lower, he has to do even more just to stand out. That is the real disadvantage Shedeur is dealing with. NFL decision-making is not always pure meritocracy. It should be, but it often is not. The people who invest more in a player are usually the people who give him the longest runway. So when Mond says Watson is probably the starter, he's not just making a football judgment. He's making an organizational judgment too. Here's the part nobody's talking about. Todd Monken does not have unlimited time to get this right. He needs results. He needs a quarterback who can help him keep his job. That means his decision is not just about talent, it's about trust. It's about who can operate the system, handle the pressure, and actually move the team forward in the standings. But Mond did not dismiss Shedeur either. He was clear that Sanders brings something real to the table. He just believes that if Deshaun Watson is healthy and looks sharper, Watson probably gets the first shot. And the real clue Mond gave was about Watson's work with quarterback coach Quincy Avery. Footwork, fundamentals, balance, precision. Watson has not just been sitting around hoping for a miracle. He's been working on the details. That at least makes the case that Watson is not hanging on to the job because of money alone. That said, Mond was honest enough to say practice is not the final answer. Quarterbacks can look polished in controlled environments, but until the real hits, the real pressure, and the real chaos of NFL games show up, nobody truly knows. And that's what makes this quarterback battle so impossible to call right now.
Shedeur, who did some good things during the regular season, he's also competing against a guy who Andrew Berry drafted above him. Mm-hmm. And for anybody who knows what dealing with really competing against a guy who was drafted by that specific team, I saw it firsthand. And, Mike Woods was a guy in 2022 who a lot of people thought should be on the field, but he couldn't get in the rotation because of where he was drafted. So I think if we can do a good job at taking off what the names are, Deshaun, Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel, take off the names.
Mond also made a strong point about the role of the new coaching staff in Todd Monken's offense. When a new system comes in, it takes time for everybody to learn the language. The early days of OTAs and minicamps are always a little messy. Defense looks better early because it is more reactionary. Offense depends on timing, communication, and chemistry. So if Browns fans watch those first few practices and panic because the offense does not look sharp, that would be premature. Give it time. Let the quarterbacks get comfortable, let the chemistry develop, then start judging. That same logic applies directly to Shedeur Sanders. Mond believes Shedeur will get better with more experience. His accuracy, short area quickness, and overall comfort in the pocket can all improve as he keeps getting reps. And Mond sees flashes of good quarterback play from Shedeur that a lot of people around Cleveland may not have seen from the position in a long time. That is one of the reasons the fan base is so divided. Some see a rookie who still has a lot to prove. Others see a player who has already shown enough to believe he has real future starter potential. Here's the part nobody is talking about. This is not just Watson versus Sanders. It is experience versus upside, investment versus potential, the old decision trying to justify itself against the new hope. Mond seems to land somewhere in the middle. He respects the talent, he respects the flashes, but he also understands the Browns may lean toward the veteran because of the larger organizational picture. And that tension is what makes this quarterback battle so fascinating to watch from the outside. Then there's Dylan Gabriel, who Mond did not treat like a non-factor. He acknowledged that Gabriel has real talent and could benefit from being in his second year with more understanding of how to operate in the league. But Mond still framed the Browns' room as one where draft status and organizational belief are huge factors. That means Gabriel, like Shedeur, has to do more than just show he belongs. He has to clearly beat the guy in front of him. And in a room this complicated, with this much money, this much history, and this much organizational pressure attached to the decision, that is a whole lot easier said than done.
And I think you will see that you have a guy who's been paid a lot of money. He's played at an MVP caliber, at MVP caliber in the past. I think he will end up being a starter unless he goes out and plays absolutely horrible, whatever that looks like throughout camp. And then you have two guys who were in the same draft class, one guy who played better in the preseason, one guy who played better in the regular season.
That is the harsh reality. Mond also touched on the idea that Shedeur and Gabriel might not even have much trade value right now unless they really impress. That is another nonsense take that people may not want to hear, but it is probably fair. A lot of fans like to imagine that if their guy loses the quarterback battle, the team can just flip him for value. But that is not always how it works, especially with young quarterbacks who have not fully proven themselves. You do not always get the return you think you will. That means the Browns have to make the right decision inside the building, not just hope there's an easy market outside of it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe for more Browns updates, quarterback battle coverage, and NFL deep dives just like this. And drop your thoughts in the comments, because this Cleveland QB situation is only getting more interesting from here.